There are two kinds of people in this world. Either you're doing things you know you shouldn't, or you're not doing things you know you should. Guess what? We're both. Hi, I'm Marcy Barker, life and business coach, aka your loving kick in the pants. This podcast is here to help you become accountable with aligned action and become boss-minded while growing a business without sacrificing what matters most. Let's dive in. Good morning, my beautiful people. I'm so excited to come to you this Wednesday for an episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. Why am I so excited? Because Boss Minded is growing. We had a fantastic New Year event last week, and my heart is full, period. Like, if you listen to this podcast, I'm so grateful that you do. But if you have come to an event online or in person, like, I love you even more because I know you a little bit better. So, Boss Minded, Your Loving Kick in the Pants, it's all here to help you. And again, I just want to thank you for being here. So as we dive in today, I want to tell you one of the things that I was surprised about, but then when you think about it, I'm not that surprised about it, is at the end of the Boss Minded event on Saturday, we went around the room and everybody shared their biggest takeaway. And all of a sudden, this word became a buzzword. It's like everybody was saying it and everybody was nodding their head anytime it was said. Everybody's like, yes. And that word was structure. And if you say it 10 times fast, the word's not going to make any sense. That's how much we were hearing it in this room by the end of the event. Now, the reason why structure is so important is because that's a big reason, a big make or break moment of why people follow through or why they don't follow through. Now, if you are waiting on motivation instead of structure for you to follow through, guess what? That's probably why you're failing. That's probably why you're not doing the things that you want to do. So structure is going to be a very, very important part of your schedule, of your business process, of your personal life, your daily life. Structure makes all of the difference. So I have a couple of points I want to talk to you about, but I'm also going to put this out there. I'm going to do a whole nother event and guided networking online Zoom call about structure because apparently everybody needs it. Sometimes I forget about that because I am the type A, follow the rules. If it's in my calendar, it will happen. And if it's not in my calendar, then there's no promises. That's one of the things that makes me a really, really good accountability coach is being able to follow a plan that's set out and making sure we execute it and complete it. So this was really, really eye-opening for me because when you're functioning on structure, there's just a piece of you that's like, I'm taken care of now because I don't have to think about it a million times. And I told everybody in the room, I said, how many of you would have come to this event only if you were motivated to this morning? And people are like, no, I had other stuff to do. I didn't want to come. I did not want to get out of bed. But the reason they came is because there was a structured event that they put their money commitment into and they showed up regardless of how they were feeling when they had to leave their house. The same is true with accountability. Now, let's dive into these three things because I could talk about it all day long. So the very first tip I want to give you on structure is that structure creates safety and it's not restriction. So I think a lot of people do fear trying to put some plan in place because they're already like, I'm going to fail at this. I just know that I'm not going to be able to keep this up. But the beautiful part is you get to choose. You get to choose what goes into your structure and you get to choose how intense you want it or how little you're going to start. One very simple thing could be like, at the end of the day, make sure that your dishes are not in the sink. Because what happens in the morning when your sink is empty and you're ready to go, you're able to make better decisions. You're able to take care of yourself. You're able to function better. So structure can also be as deep as like Mondays I do this, Tuesdays I do this, Fridays I don't do anything, Saturdays are yard work days. Like you can plan it out as meticulously as you want to, but it doesn't have to be that way. When we talk about structure, we're literally saying, what are the confines I'm going to put this in? What's the container where this thing can exist? And what am I going to say no to in order to say yes to this thing? So the reason why structure is so important is because it gives us the safe space to do what we want to do or what we need to do. So I want you to think about that. I want you to think about structure being not fluid or flexible, but what's the word? Personalized. You can set this up however you want to. Structure is even like putting food in the crock pot at the beginning of the day so that when 5 p.m. rolls around, you're like, I know what we're going to eat because I set it up ahead of time and now it's ready to go. Another example of structure is when I started using a Google Calendar instead of a paper calendar. And I know some of you guys are like, Marcy, do not come for my planner. I love my bullet journal and I love all my colored pens and I love my stickers. That's totally fine. But for me, as soon as I got hooked in with my Google Calendar, I was able to take more calls, take more appointments, and I made more sales. It was easier for me to dedicate time to my business growth instead of just like whenever the kids took a nap or they went out to play with friends. Okay. So structure, it creates safety for you, not restriction. The only way it's going to feel restrictive is if you do something you don't want to do. Like, do not go out there and decide that everybody's going to have to clean the house on Saturday morning. Like, you can't control that. But can you put some things in place to make it a more safe or conducive environment for you? You totally can. So structure, I want you to know, it holds a position for something that's important to you. It also just ahead of time sets your expectations correctly for what you want to do instead of just being open to whatever somebody else might throw into your lap. Okay. The second reason why structure is important is that it can decide for you in advance. Another example is like, if you want to go to the gym in the morning, set your clothes out the night before. You've literally put together a plan that's going to make you more successful because of what you did in the past or what you decided ahead of time. And what I really like about this, like, I filled out a speaking application and somebody wants to talk to me and they said, what times are you available? And by the way, we're on the other side of the country, so time zone is different. And it was so refreshing to me to be like, I am free after 3 p.m. every single day because that's how my schedule is set up. When people want to book a call with me, my call time is 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And I already know that if I need to be there for my kids, I'm not going to have client calls during that time. That's structure that allows my mind to be free. And I don't have to decide all of the time when I can meet with somebody. Like, it doesn't have to be that way. So structure, another thing that I do is because Aubrey and I, my husband and I, are really focused on paying off our house. Every single Monday, I have an email that comes from the mortgage company that says, here's the balance, here's what you owe. And then guess what I do? I take that number and I go to my Google Calendar and I open up a reoccurring task. I click on it. It takes me to my Google Drive, the document where I'm tracking debt payoff, and I put that number into the spreadsheet and it tells me how much we have left. It happens every single week without failure. And when somebody asks me, how are you doing on your plan? I know exactly where I'm at because I put the structure in place. And then when I think about paying off debt, it's not like, how much do I owe? When do I need to pay? What are we at? It's like, all I have to do is ask myself, how much do I want to put in this week? That's it. So structure, when you decide in advance, it becomes part of your schedule. It becomes part of how you function. It becomes part of how people treat you. Like going to church on Sundays, every single Sunday. If it's a non-negotiable, if that's structure in your life, then it's going to benefit you in a lot of other ways. If you go to the gym, if you sign up for a fitness class and you have to pay to go, like the chances of you going are going to be so much higher. So structure should decide for you in advance. I don't want you to think that structure has to be restrictive. It's literally past you serving future you. That's what structure is all about. Okay, the last thing, tip number 3, is that structure only works if it's simple. So I've talked about this before. If you were going to go overhaul your entire schedule and your entire life to be like, here's what I'm doing, here's what the kids are doing, here's, actually people do this for the new year all the time when they're like, I'm going to get healthy. And it's like, so you're telling me you're going to start going to the gym every single day. You're going to start meal prepping. You're going to start drinking a gallon of water, and you're going to start going to bed at 9 p.m. All of that at once. That's a big, big, big reason why people do not follow through. And I don't want you to think that you have to go cold turkey on something or overhaul your entire life. Like structure can be something so simple. What I love about deciding in advance and keeping it simple is that that's the best way to create change. So as we talk more about accountability and follow through, the word structure might excite you, or it might be like, I don't think I can fit into a box. I encourage you to take your structure goals through the accountability code. so that you can work out the best next step for you and move forward in a way that is aligned with what you want and who you are. So if we're going to do a rapid fire version of the accountability code, okay, I'll use my own example. So if I'm thinking about structure in my life, I probably need to be a little bit better about meal planning. Right now, actually, I can add a picture. I'll add a picture right here. Last year, I printed a big calendar of every single day of the year and I put it in my kitchen. And the purpose of this was not to meal prep in advance, because that seems exhausting to me, to decide every single day what we were going to eat for the whole week. Like, I do not want to do that. But what I did want to do is document what we did have and who prepared the meal for us. So on this big calendar, the structure was, hey, my goal is just to put something on that calendar because I want to sit at the table and eat with my family. So the structure was there. And so when I think about improving my structure around meal planning now, I'm like, okay, cool. That calendar was awesome. But I didn't fill out near as many days as I wanted to. But now I can go back at that calendar and I can look at all the meals we did have. And guess what? The meals that we did have and document, those are the meals that I'm most likely to make over and over and over again. So if I'm saying, hey, I want to be better at meal prepping, I'm going to look at my top meals and assume that my family's going to eat more of those. And I can make sure that those ingredients are always stocked. Like, that's a very, very simple thing I could do. So reflection, I'm just going to think about my goals and my values and my problems. And I'm like, I want to meal prep better. And there were too many times where we did not have the food that we wanted to eat. That's the reflection. Hey, my beautiful people. If you're loving these episodes, you'll want the full experience. I've bundled both of my books, The Accountability Code and Becoming Boss Minded, into one powerful package. You'll get instant access to the audiobooks and ebooks so you can learn and grow anytime, anywhere. Head to bossminded.com and grab the book bundle now. It's the perfect way to stay inspired between episodes. All right, let's dive back in. Humility. When I think about humility, a modest view of who I am now related to who I can be, it's like I am the mom of the family. So I think there's just this intrinsic expectation of like, I'm in charge of meals. I have worked to shift this over the years. And the good news is Aubrey and I, we share this responsibility. If there is not any food on the table, I do not feel guilty for it. It is like a shared failure between husband and wife as the parents. And I say failure because we both dropped the ball, but I am not taking full responsibility for it. When we are working as a team, it's like, okay, what are we going to do better? What are we going to do to solve the problem? What are we going to do to nurture these kids who are hangry now? So humility, if I'm talking about structure, this means that if I'm going to improve my structure, I'm not going to try and do it by myself. I'm going to sit down with my husband and say, hey, what can we do this week to be a little bit better about prepping food? And there are lots of times where I do not want to make anything. And Aubrey like whips out his homemade dough and makes pizza. And I'm like, yes, please, we can do that. But humility is tapping into resources you have available. So in order for me to feel better about meal prepping, it's like, I'm just going to communicate with my husband a little bit better about it and more often. So reflection, humility, next step is planning. So planning, now here's another crazy thing. I don't know if it was January last year or even before that, but on my Google Calendar, I had an event set up on every single Friday that was to ask the kids what they wanted to eat. We would get onto either Walmart or Aldi or Sam's Club and we would place an order of all the food that we needed so that on Saturday it got there and we could meal prep and do all of that. And that worked for a long time. I even had like this cute menu in Canva and I wrote down what we were eating. I wrote a list of the snacks we had and I even wrote down the number of how much money we spent on groceries because I'm like, I'm paying off debt. We're going to get really organized. It worked for a while, but it was a little bit too much. Just like I talked about, overhauling, it was kind of an overhaul. It worked for a little bit, but it wasn't something that I could sustain on my own. So planning, I could probably go back to my Google Calendar because guess what? At some point, I did delete that event. I did delete that event on Fridays of like ask everybody what they wanted. So I could go back to my calendar and say, okay, how can I adjust this? So maybe the calendar event is not about asking everybody what they want, but maybe it's about me doing the work to say, Aubrey, it's Friday before we go out for a date. Is there something we can do to make sure the kids are covered? And planning too, I think that this last year, we have failed to include our kids more. It's more of like, what do you want? It could be like, what are you going to make for dinner on this day of the week? So planning, remember, is a detailed proposal for achieving success. It doesn't have to be super concrete or set in stone. But I will say for planning, I'm going to review my Google task on Fridays. And I can begin to get back into that, but in a way that makes more accurate sense for me now. Okay, so that's the waking up part. Next is showing up. So implementing, commitment, and feedback. Now, implementing is putting into use your desired skills or values. I will say one thing that I have done in the last year is I've done a lot more grocery pickup, and I have done a lot more scan and go. Like, thank you, Sam's Club, because I do not really go to Costco anymore, just because I don't want to wait in line to check out with my groceries at Costco. It takes way too long. But at Sam's Club, I can scan everything through the app and just swipe and walk out the door, and it's really nice. So implementing, if I'm talking about putting into use my desired skills or values, I think that I want to do better about helping my whole family do that. Like, what do you think we need? And put a little bit of more mental responsibility on them, because again, I'm not the only one that needs to eat in the house. So implementing, let me update that a little bit. If I am already working on communicating with my husband, I'm also going to work on communicating with my kids. And now that I say that, one of my daughters, I was gone. I don't even know where I was, but I was out of the house, and she was calling me, asking me if we needed certain food in the fridge. Because she was cleaning out the fridge. She took everything out of the fridge and cleaned it out, wiped the shelves and everything. And I was like, I don't think I've ever had anybody do that for me in my life, aside from paying a cleaning company to do it. So that was really nice. So for implementing, I'm going to just do a better job about communicating with my kids, because I think that if I do that, as they're getting older, more mature, I think that they're seeing a need for that and that they're capable of doing that too. So implementing is communicating with kids better. Okay, so now we come to commitment. Commitment is dedicating yourself to a cause or binding yourself to an outcome. So if I'm talking about structure within the concept of my goals, of meal prepping goals and structure, what's something that I can check off the list or prove and say that I did? And, you know, there has been, we have a whiteboard in our kitchen, and many times in my married life have I put whiteboards up for structure. And we have a whiteboard that's in our kitchen, and it has become a mess. There is a lot of things on there with magnets, like kids' grades or things that have come in the mail. Coupons are on there, and there's a lot of scribbles on there. You know what? And my commitment item is to clean the whiteboard. And that's going to automatically give me more structure, because I'm that type A kind of person. And because I just had the event on Saturday, I have brand new dry erase markers that I can use. So I'm going to clean the whiteboard. That's going to be my commitment item. Now, reminder, I've probably said this before, but when you have commitment items, you need to ask yourself, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident am I that I can complete this task? You must be an 8, a 9, or a 10, or else you need to change your commitment item. Okay. Now, if I look at this task of cleaning the whiteboard, that actually really excites me, because I like clean stuff and it needs to be done. And knowing as soon as I have a nice clean whiteboard, I can start to communicate with my kids better about meal prepping. Like that's gonna happen. Also, with that data I collected on the piece of paper, the calendar I had in my kitchen, it sat there on the wall for a very long time. I'm not a decorator. My home is not cute at all. Like, look at the shelf. You guys can tell this is not my strong suite at all. But where was I going with that? Oh, the whiteboard's just going to look better. It's going to look better than that calendar. But on that calendar, remember, I can go back and say, okay, what meals did we have the most? And how can I bulk prep those, or how can I have those ingredients on hand more? Okay. So now the last step of the accountability code is feedback. Feedback is information used as a basis for improvement. We can't talk a whole lot about feedback until we've taken action. So when I tell you about feedback right now, you have probably already noticed that I've given you feedback based on what I did a whole year ago or what I've done throughout the whole year. The beauty of using the accountability code is you get to take your life experience and you get to take your emotional experience and say, where do I want to go from here? I don't want to compare myself to anybody else, but I do need to make sure that I'm moving forward in a way that makes sense for me. So when it comes to structure, I am a very, very structured person, but like I showed you guys here going through the accountability code, I'm not going to pretend that I'm perfect. Like there's a lot of things that I could definitely improve in my life with more structure at a level and pace that I'm ready to do. So With feedback, information used as a basis for improvement, I'm just going to jot down, like I have my calendar in Kitchen, data, and I have my Google Calendar, task, that I can re-implement because at some point I took that off my calendar. So those are really good examples of structure. I want you guys to know, if you are feeling like, yeah, I could use some more structure in my life, definitely reach out to me. Tell me what your specific situation is, and you can utilize the accountability code to go through it. But I do want you to know that I'm going to be here for you. And as a reminder, one of the biggest reasons why people do not follow through is because they rely on motivation more than they rely on their structure. So I encourage you to take a little teeny step in improving your structure, because on those days where you definitely don't feel like it, the structure is going to move you through it. Like if I really don't want to make food, or if I am laid up because I got sick, having structure in place is going to allow my family to help. It's going to allow them to pick up the slack. It's going to allow them to be independent about their own food choices too, because heaven forbid I'm in charge of everybody's food for the rest of their life. Like, nope, that's not how it's going to be. So I encourage you, if you don't have the books yet, get the accountability code and Becoming Boss Minded. But ultimately, I'm here to be your loving kick in the pants. So take action on whatever it is you feel moved to do today. And I'm excited to see you next week for another episode of Your Loving Kick in the Pants. Thanks for tuning in, friend. If this episode gave you value, don't just keep it to yourself. Share it with someone in your circle who's ready to wake up, show up, and grow their business without sacrificing what matters most. When you do, you're not just helping them, you're building your network of like-minded leaders. And I'll say this plainly, leaving a kind review matters more than you know. It helps more people find the show, and it keeps the momentum going. So pause for a moment and please drop that review. Lastly, if there's a topic you want me to cover, I want to hear from you. Reach out, because this podcast is for you and I'm here to serve. Until next time, stay boss-minded.